your way. Todd Anderson is on your left. Danny Jessup is on your right. You see the numbers next to their name. Anderson is number 12 on our Season 2 leaderboard, and Danny is number 5. Danny was certainly in the Players' Championship race here for Season 2. Did a lot of traveling, but had some difficulty picking up points. That said, he's had some decent performances in the IQs with Grixis Control. He's off to a nice start here, and we'll see if he can get by one of the best Modern players in this tournament. One thing I can tell you about Todd as he starts off with the Serum Visions, he's very comfortable playing this deck.
Yeah, so a lot of these players who play in the SCG Open Series don't all have that much Modern experience, but when Todd, a player who also plays the Grand Prix and Grand Prix circuits as well as the SCG one, I think he's really at an advantage entering a tournament like this. And I would expect to see him show that off over the course of these 2 days.
Serum Visions is done resolving Jessup. We'll draw a card. Both players should keep 7. I'll just play a Scalding Tarn and pass the turn back. You'll find a little bit of what feels like Legacy with fetch lands here, but you're not going to find the busted dual lands like Tropical Island. You'll find the more fair Ravnica shock lands like Breeding Pool in this particular format. I'm very interested to see how Grixis Control is going to fare in this matchup, because obviously because you're playing Grixis, you don't have access to Abrupt Decay. I'm taking a look at some of the numbers here and some of the cards in the deck. I'm finding a card in Roast within Todd's deck. So, you don't really find that kind of card. It's a weird main deck card.
Well, I really like it in this matchup, actually. So when you look at these decks are going to be very similar, where Todd has Tarmogoyfs, Danny has copies of a Tasigur, 3 of them in his deck. Roast is a really well-positioned card if Danny's going to try to play that 4/5.
Danny's going to search up 2 islands with both those Scalding Turns, so he's down to 18. You saw Todd just play a Sulphur Falls and pass the turn back. You get Anderson with 2 main deck copy of Roast. He has a main deck Dispel floating out here. He's got a main deck copy of Electrolyze, 2. So some kind of strange cards floating around here. There's a Serum Visions. It must be really painful to be a blue player in this format and having to play Serum Visions.
I mean, you get to play Serum Visions. It's still fine.
Maybe just Preordain and Ponder and Brainstorm, even though Brainstorm wouldn't be legal in Modern. Maybe those cards are just so good that we've been spoiled.
I mean, that's certainly true. Those cards are unbelievable.
Todd will draw a copy Deceiver Exarch.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting in these early turns as you'll see the players just set up with lands. The investment, right here, Todd could try to stick something like a Tarmogoyf if he had it. I think it just might even stick Deceiver Exarch.
He's just going to cast it right now. Doesn't have to worry about a counterspell at this point. So he says, I'll just play it right now. I'll untap my Sulphur Falls and just pass the turn back.
And this is a tremendous amount of pressure that Todd gets to put on the board here. Because Danny knows that Todd will have copies of Splinter Twin, at least for this game. And because Danny started out on Island, it's unlikely that Danny can say untap and terminate the Deceiver Exarch. He doesn't have the right mana to kill it right here, which is what he'd want to do.
I find it humorous that you say he's underneath a lot of pressure, because you're not wrong. But yeah, it's just a 1/4. Right.
So the pressure is just, you can think about this as like a Stone Rain out of the Teamer deck, actually. So you're playing this Tempo Mirror, and resource advantage is going to matter. And what Todd's doing is he's going to force Danny to waste a lot of mana.
Yeah. Danny's going to just have to keep mana up or respect the fact that, hey, I could just die at a moment's notice, which is what makes playing against twin decks really just unpleasant, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and there aren't that many ways for Danny to kill Deceiver Exarch. Terminates the big one, which he has 3 copies of. Like I said, he didn't have the right mana for that just yet. And now Todd will get to, because Todd can tap out on his turn. He can do things like Snapcast Serum Visions if he wants to gain advantage. Danny doesn't have those plays available because of the Deceiver Exarch.
Yeah, because if he taps out, he can just die.
Right.
And that's what's so scary about playing against Twin. Now, one thing to note here is Danny is aggressively searching up basics. That's Island Swamp in a deck where he does have access to non-basics, I swear.
Yeah, and this is huge. He plays Vendilion Click, and the danger with this main phase Vendilion Click is that he has to take any Splinter Twin he finds. And I think the reason Danny's going to do it is because he's worried that Todd will just jam a Splinter Twin because Danny has the wrong mana.
I mean, for example, if Todd draws a Splinter Twin right now, the game is over.
Yeah, he just plays it and wins.
Well, that's a red card. Fortunately for Jessup, it is a Lightning Bolt and not a Splinter Twin. But here's the thing. As Todd's going to surf in here with the Deceiver Exarch, a 1/4 into a 3/1 is obviously a very safe attack, is you can just play a normal game of Magic. There's nothing that says, okay, if I didn't draw the combo, now this game gets really hard. You just played a Tarmogoyf. That thing's pretty big. Lightning Bolt took care of Vendilion Click, and now Todd's just playing a normal game of Magic. That's the appeal of Teamer Twin.
Yeah, well, the pressure was, Danny had to main phase a Vendilion Click there. That's such a constraining play to have to make.
Tasigur at the draw. We know Anderson has an answer for that in Roast.
Yeah, those Roasts are so well positioned. I really like that Todd is running 2 of them here.
It makes sense. A lot of talk coming in this tournament actually was how good Tasigur is in this format. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, Tasigur in this format And we've seen in Legacy be pretty good, but in this format, it can honestly be a turn 2, 4/5. Just a 1 mana or even 2 mana, just boom. I just play Tasker on turn 2 pretty easily.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of stuff in the graveyard to get on turn 2, but turn 3 is not hard at all.
Yeah.
And that's a really great part. It fights well against Tarmogoyf. Danny can exile his own cards in the graveyard to reduce the different kinds of card types.
Here's a Watery Grave. That is Tassiger. And now he's got 2 blue mana available for something like a Remand if he has in his hand some sort of permission spell. It feels a little Legacy-ish. Now Tarmogoyf's down to a 2/3. You mentioned how Tasker can remove the graveyard. It's going to go up to a 3/4 given the fetch line that's in the graveyard now. It's interesting because we don't get to see a ton of Modern on the Open Series. We see a lot of Standard, of course, and occasionally Legacy, but we've only had 1 Modern event, and you and Patrick took care of that in Baltimore.
Modern has been, I would say, my favorite format for the last couple of years.
I've liked it a lot. Some people don't like it because, a lot of the deck, it feels like, you can't beat everything.
Yeah, this deck, this kind of match is just very interesting. You see Todd got the 2nd red there so he can play around something like Remand, but not Spell Snare. Can't play around that one.
No, he can't. I suppose he could Remand his own Roast.
And that's what he's going to
Yeah.
do.
Now, that's one of my favorite plays with Remand, is Remanding your own spell.
That Remand is very good here. And this is, once again, because Todd has the freedom to tap out on his main phase, and Danny does not.
Yeah.
Todd gets to make plays, like Remanding his own spells, which that was another 2-for-1, for example. And we saw, like I talked about Snapcasting, Serum Visions, there are these plays that only the player who's ahead gets to make.
And the player who's headed conveniently in this situation is Todd, simply because he has a 1/4 in play.
Right.
One could argue that Danny has the best creature in play in Tassiger. It's, a 4/5. It's bigger than everything else that's on the battlefield. It has a relevant ability. But in reality, I think Todd actually has the best creature in play in Deceiver Exarch, given just what it presents and how it kind of contorts the way that Danny has to play the game.
Yeah, and is going to do that. Now, Tassiger is interesting because he can get all the card advantage back. There is some pressure on Todd to continue making plays. So if Todd just starts Serum Visioning and making more value plays, Danny will keep pace with Tassiger.
Well, Tassiger's coming into the red zone right now.
But there's a lot of pressure on Danny to have Terminates because he needs one for the Goyf and for the Deceiver Exarch.
Another Deceiver Exarch was the draw here for Anderson. You see his hand? He's got that Exarch Cryptic Command. We know about the Roast over there as well. He's at 15 at this point. Yeah. We'll see if he wants to roast in the main phase or not.
And what I like is that he can roast here, and Danny can't use the ability because Todd could just play another land and Splinter Twin him. Now, Danny might make the risk anyway. That's asking a lot of Todd's hand to do that, but...
Let's see what this is. This is going to be a Snapcaster Mage.
All right, looks like he's just going to try to counter all those roasts.
And looks like Snapcaster Mage is going to go after Spell Snare. And it's going to flashback Spell Snare, targeting Roast. It's this really kind of strange posturing battle these two players are having. And it's actually kind of hard to tell who's advantaged at this point.
What is interesting to me here is that Danny has left himself open to Splinter Twin combo. Todd doesn't know that and probably wouldn't do it into 2 mana. But there is pressure on Todd. If he cannot kill Tassiger, he needs to try to get Danny before... Eventually, if they run out of cards here, Danny will get to start activating Tassiger.
Todd's getting aggressive now.
Right, and that's exactly what he needs to do because he's recognizing the Tassiger means that Danny has the late game.
Again, he gets to kind of shift the way he wants to play the game. So Exarch taps down Snapcaster Mage. All right, attack you for 5 points of damage. Danny's going to sacrifice Scalding Tarn here and get a land out of his deck. But I think part of the reason that Todd is making that play is because at this point, he's kind of winning the race, and he's also got this Cryptic Command that he can say, tap your team, attack again, which also makes things a little bit interesting. This Teamer Twin deck, it is truly fascinating to me the way that it plays its games, because even though it is categorized as a variant of Splinter Twin, a lot of the time it doesn't even feel like that. It just seems like it incidentally has it. You see a Thought Scour there, turn over a land and a Terminate. So we're going to head back Jessup's way. He'll take a draw. He's got his Tasker out there, his Snapcaster Mage, and a couple of lands. Mana looks all right at this point. Terminate the draw seems like a pretty good one.
Now, there is some choking here for Danny on red mana. All 4 of his cards are red, and he just has the 1 Steam Vents.
How do you feel about the early stages of the game where he searched up Double Island? It felt strange.
I don't like it. Yeah, that was... I mean, it really hurt him because Todd got to play with much more aggressively because he didn't have to fear terminate.
Yeah, it really felt kind of strange. Now, I know that Danny's deck, and he's played this deck a little bit, it has access to Blood Moon in the main deck, so he's a little bit more basic heavy. He has 2 Blood Moons in the main, and then might have access to them. He has at least 1 in the sideboard, and we'll talk about that after this game is over. But now, because he's searched up those basics, now his mana is really, really contorted. You see Tarmogoyf get taken care of by Terminate. Tarmogoyf the draw here for Anderson, so replacement.
That'll be great. Danny just trying to keep pace. If he can keep this game under control until he gets to activate Tassigers, that's where Danny's going to want to play it. But it may never get to that point.
Yeah, I don't know if it will.
There's a lot of pressure on Danny's mana.
Well, Todd's got some real decisions to make, too. The cards in his hand are all very good. He's got a Tarmogoyf. That one's probably the most straightforward of the bunch. He's got a Snapcaster Mage hanging out in the graveyard, and then the modes of Cryptic Command. That's a decision tree in and of itself. So this is why I don't play blue. It's too hard.
This is not this kind of blue game. This is hard to me also. No one's trying to be all their role assessment is so all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not well defined.
All right, Roast
I like doing one thing. It's hard.
Roast is finally going to take care of Tassiger. It's off the table. Now the Exarchs are going to come in. No good blocks here for Jessup, of course. It looks like he doesn't have any interest in jump blocking, so he's going to go down to 9.
The 1-4 aggro continues. Now, Danny can rebuy that. He does have Kolagon's command, so he could kill Snapcaster, rebuy Tassiger, play Tassiger. There's a lot of that going on. Did draw a second red source this turn, but he would have to pay 2 life for it, which is a cost here.
Given how this game is shaping up and it doesn't look to be an infinite damage game from Anderson's side of the board, absolutely. The thought of just rebuying Tasker with Kolagon's command is certainly an interesting one. He's going to start by attacking for 2.
Does Todd trade?
The answer is yes. All right. Let's see what's next here.
Those 1-4s are actually just so hard for Danny to get off the table.
And what's so interesting here, too, is that, one single misstep and you can just die.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes this so hard. It's almost like all of your decisions are magnified.
Yeah, they're in a racing situation. And one thing that Todd can lean on is that he has a Cryptic Command on a board that looks to be headed toward a race. So Todd probably has some security here that he may win the race.
Maybe it's time for Kolagon's command. I mean, Kolagon's command, make you discard a card and get back my Tassiger, is really good because Todd's last card in his hand is a Well, I guess he has Cryptic and Tarmogoyf. Okay.
I mean, those are both pretty good to get, though.
Yeah. All right, so here's Kolagon's command.
Now, there's another gold card in Danny's hand. Now, it may be a copy of Keranos.
Yep.
Okay. Said it could be a second Kolagon's command, but I think it's the god.
Todd's going to discard Tarmogoyf. Danny's going to get back Tassiger. That card right there, Kolagon's command, that card's insane. It's so good. All right, looks like it's Tassiger time.
Again. Yep. He'll leave turn. Now you see the first card he decides he wants to leave in there is a Terminate. Makes a lot of sense.
And he's got 2 Terminates that he's going to leave. He'll delve away the rest. So now there's Tassiger.
Yeah, and that is the card that Danny needs. You said before when Todd kept playing Tarmogoyfs and Seabrax said there's a lot. These Terminates are overworked in the matchup.
Jessup has a Steam Vents in his hand. He's considering playing a tap versus untapped right now, again, because we are in this kind of racing situation. He's going to take 2 and go down to 7. See if he wants to deploy the Grimlothmancer or just try to bluff.
And this is an aggressive bluff from Danny. This bluff cost him 2 life on a board where 2 life is a really big resource. I like that he's trying to keep Todd honest, but you wonder whether it's worth it. That was a big price.
And what's interesting, too, there is how you play the Steam Vents. Do you play it slowly and think about playing it untapped, or do you just slam it down untapped and say go? Because what he's representing here is like a Remand or a Manly type card. Because a decent turn here from Todd might just be, bounce your Tassiger, draw a card.
Sure.
And he might not be able to make that play down, or might believe that Danny does have some sort of counterspell. He's reaching for mana. So here's Cryptic Command. He says, I'm going to go for it anyway. I'll bounce your creature, draw a card, drew a copy of Snapcaster Mage, come across here for 2 points of damage. Jessup's going to go down to 5. Todd wasn't buying it. Play a Scalding Tarn, pass the turn back.
Danny's getting so close to having things under control, but he's just running out of life points. Draws Darkslick Shores.
Haven't seen that one for a while.
No. 2 of in Danny's desk. So this time Tasker will cost at least 4. Looks like it'll be 5. And I don't know. Yeah, now Danny's does not have the ability to represent anything.
Yep. So now he's gotten to the point where it's, okay, I hope you don't have Splinter Twin, but he may have been in that situation for some time now. Again, that's what makes it so difficult to play against this deck, is because a lot of the time when you're playing against a twin deck, be it blue-red, be it Grixis, Jeskai, or the Teamer Twin deck that we're watching now, there's a lot of finger crossing of, hope you don't have Twin.
You see Todd, I believe, has a Snapcaster and can play Snapcaster and Cryptic. He has enough blue. And enough lands.
Snapcaster's the last card. He'll draw a card. It's a copy of Pestermite, which...
Boy, those 2 draws, it's going to be hard for Danny to stay above water here.
Yeah. Pestermite tapping Tasker this turn is actually really good.
Sure, that Cryptic Command, and then Todd still has a Snapcast of a Cryptic. Yep, so he'll tap Tasker, serve with some 1/4s. You just feel bullied here. Like, this is,
It's super unpleasant. It's really unpleasant to play against.
Here come the 1/4s.
Yep.
There's,
The Grim Lawmancer is looking at that Pestermite saying, I kind of want to shoot you down, but there's only 1 card in the graveyard, which is Terminate, which Jessup wants to get back with this Tassiger.
Well, Jessup can do everything next turn.
Yep. He's going to flashback Lightning Bolt now. Since he took the damage, it goes down to 3. Top play Snapcaster Mage, gets back Lightning Bolt, and that's going to do it. So Todd Anderson's going to win game number 1 here over Danny Jessup. Teamer Twins up a game over Grixis Control. We'll get to the sideboards in a second, but it's really that tension the entire time, and all of that really stemmed to how the game was played from a turn 3 Deceiver Exarch.
Yeah, I mean, Todd did 20 damage without any real damage sources. He beat him to death with 1/4s and some of Danny's own lands, and I think a Tarmogoyf got in once.
I think once.
Just once.
I think once.
Yeah.
We're going to start with Danny Jessup's sideboard. You've got that in front of you. I know there's at least 1 Blood Moon in there.
All right, so he has a 3rd Blood Moon. There's 2 in the main deck, which he can go toward. Other cards in matchup, we'll go through them. Dispel, Spellskite, Is It Staticaster, Rending Volley, Vandal Blast, Magma Spray, Kolaghan's Command, Olivia Voldaren, Vendilion Click, Jace, Architect of Thought. Now, there are a lot of interesting weapons in this fight. So Spellskite is pretty decent. Actually, just as a 0/4 blocker because it blocks 1/4s. It also eats things like Lightning Bolts. It's a pretty reasonable card. Rending Volley, great here. Deals 4 to a blue creature. Seems like something he'll go toward. Extra Kolaghan's Commands. He has 1 more on the board. That'll be his go up to 3. That seems pretty reasonable. Otherwise, he has Vendilion Click, Jace, Architect of Thought, and Olivia Voldaren. Depending on how he wants to approach the matchup, I could see him bringing in anywhere from none of those to all of those.
And that's what makes it so tough, is because is Todd going to keep his Splinter Twin package in? Is he going to board it out? Is he going to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that? His sideboard allows him to do what a lot of twin decks have been doing, which is just kind of boarding into a regular deck. 2 Huntmaster of the Fells, a Keranos God of Storms, a Threat of Disloyalty, Dispel, Negate, Counterflux, Vandal Blast, another copy of Deceiver Exarch. He's got 3 main, 1 board, 2 Pyroclasms, 2 Ancient Grudge, an Is It Staticaster, and a Rending Volley. Again, this would be me purely guessing. I feel like you as well. The interesting thing is Todd has already decided to board it up and good to go, while Danny has to, okay, is he going to have this? Is he going to have that? Todd's got so many different ways he can take it. He can continue to just play a normal game.
Right, so I assume he wants to upgrade some of his spells. I would think Counterflux, Negate, and Huntmaster of the Fells are all cards I would be surprised if Todd didn't bring in.
Okay.
Better counter magic. Huntmaster is the kind of card he wants here. If that guy gets going, it's really problematic for Danny.
Well, you guys know Todd Anderson. He's got a lot of Open Series top 8s. Number 12 on our Season 2 leaderboard, and he is Open Series point hunting. He top 8 our last Invitational. He's looking to top 8 this one. He's got 3 Invitational top 8s with 1 win during Season 3 of 2012. 21 Open Series top 8s with 5 wins. He's also got 4 Grand Prix top 8s. As you see there, the most Open Series top 8s of all time. The wife, fantastic at organized play. Callie Anderson, first woman to ever win an Open Series. And this is bold. The self-proclaimed best NFL Blitz player ever. It sounds like challenges are open. Many people disagreeing, including one of our directors, I believe, challenging Todd to a game. He's also been playing a lot of Mortal Kombat recently.
The new one, right?
Yes, the new one came out recently.
Yeah.
I'm not as big into video games anymore, but following Todd on social media, him and Tom Ross have really been battling in the local Mortal Kombat scene in Roanoke, Virginia. So Apparently people don't want to challenge him on that. I think Todd's been spending a little more time there recently than on Magic.
So what kind, do you ever play fighting games?
I used to when I was young.
Okay.
I was a big fan of Street Fighter, mostly the Street Fighter Alpha series. I was into Mortal Kombat when I was a kid, because like when you're a kid and Mortal Kombat comes out and there's like blood in a video game, that's really cool. And I got into Street Fighter 4 a little bit, but I've kind of stepped away.
I always played like the really huge guy who can't move well, but if he ever hits you, takes half your life points. I always liked that guy.
So you like
in every
Zangief?
game? Every single like Zangief, the sumo wrestler in Street Fighter.
E Honda.
Oh yeah, I was always that guy. It's like if I ever hit you, you're going down.
Did you do that in the racing games too? Like did you play like the
Bowser?
Yep,
Bowser in Mario Kart. I'm gonna run you off the road.
I don't know if that's the
Drive
control
straight
deck.
down the middle.
I think that's the control deck of those games, though I'm not positive. Danny's gonna sacrifice the Scalding Tart. I like that it's one way in all the video games.
Every game. Yeah. With your Mario Kart, you pick the biggest character. You don't try to drive. You drive down the middle of the road, and if anyone's there, you just hit them, and then you win because you're bigger.
That's how you get your advantage. There it is, a Blood Crypt here for Jessup. We'll see if he's gonna try anything revolving around Blood Moon in the sideboarded games. It's possible. I find it to be rather unlikely, and you'll note that he is actually kind of searching up dual lands this game a little more aggressively.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not he's gone with the Blood Moon package.
I mean, I would be surprised if he did. It just doesn't seem like it would be all that great in this matchup because it's also something that these Team or Twin decks can do to other people. Does Todd have them this weekend? No. But is it something you're cognizant of when you're playing Modern? Yes.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he was Blood Mooning. I agree.
Scalding Tarn's going to get sacrificed here by Jessup. A little slow start here.
You see Todd, I mean, yeah, even with his board right now, it wouldn't even be that strong.
No.
He has a couple basics.
It would not do very much at all. I want to see what land Jessup's going to get here. All right, it's another duel. This is pretty telling if you're searching up the duels. That, okay, Blood Moon's off the table at this point, and that's fine. And we'll move forward accordingly. I do want to see who's going to kind of be the first one to throw the first volley in this game.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in control mirrors, it's often the first player who's going to miss a land drop has to act first, but that's not necessarily true in these tempo mirrors. Players actually want to get onto the board first as long as they think they can do it safely.
Here's Serum Visions.
Todd, this is just a cycle here off Remand. Because no one has any board presence, you can afford to tap out on the opponent's turn. There's not too many penalizing things that will happen.
I never really have seen that before. Remanding Serum Visions like that. I mean, that's purely a cycle of the card because Danny has Danny had a Steam Vents in play that he could recast it with anyway.
Todd was low on lands. He only had one more land in his hand. After that Remand, he had two additionals.
Okay. Gonna sacrifice Scalding Tarn.
If you look at his hand, so he has a lot of threats, cards like Huntmaster of the Fells. It looks like because of how Todd wants to play this upcoming game, he may not have another window to conveniently cast Remand. So if he's keeping Remand, he's saying, I want to cast this on turn 7. And I think he'd rather just ensure that he's closer to hitting his land drops than having a turn 7 Remand.
Stomping Ground's the land he searched up. Serum Vision's the draw. Land number 4 could be a breeding pool here. It looks like he's going to start with Serum Visions. Maybe, maybe not. One thing to also keep in mind, too, when it comes to Huntmaster of the Fells, a really nice threat against these decks that have access to red mana because they don't die to Rending Volley.
Todd drawing a Jataxian Probe there. That's actually a card, I really like that kind of card in this matchup. Just sometimes your opponent's hand is very good and you're replaying this chess match, and sometimes they've been scrying and just really didn't set up what they wanted to, and when that happens, you want to know.
He's got 2 in his 75 this weekend, both in the main deck. See if he does want to fire one off here. You also see a copy is a Static Caster in hand for him. There is Gataxian Probe. Gonna pay 2, get some information. Mana Leak among the cards here in Jessup's hand. There's also a copy of Remand over there. Looks like a copy of Rending Volley, a Mountain.
No real threats in Danny's hand yet. He's got a lot of parrying power, a lot of answers, but this means that Danny's not going to get onto the board quickly. So if you're in Todd's spot, this gives you a green light to spend your main phase mana. Now, whether or not your things will resolve, that's another question. But he can try to go for things like Huntmaster, or even if he wants to, he can do things like use Cryptics on end step to get value. He's not going to get punished anymore.
There's a Mountain for Jessup.
Looks like the draw was Kolagon's Command. That's a good one.
Dispel the draw here for Anderson. He'll play land number 5. At this point, it's just about hitting a land. Someone will get on the board eventually here. Jessup will take a draw. Pick the copy of Drowned Catacombs, I believe. Let's change that to Watery Grave. Vendilion Click. Now that might be a way to break things open.
It's one of the great threat. That's a good threat to start the game on. It has flash, and right on time. Danny gets a threat of his own though.
Yeah, he picked up a copy of Tasigur.
If he doesn't go for the Tasigur here, Todd is going to click away the Tasigur.
Yes.
And
We're gonna get some movement now.
yeah, Danny has enough action at 2 mana instance that, and enough mana that because he can play Tasigur and have 2 spells up, this seems like the right time to do it.
So there is Tasigur.
This is the Tarmogoyf card out of Danny's deck. Can't get as big as a Tarmogoyf. Does have an pretty nice activated ability for the deck, however.
So we'll see if this is the kind of threat that Todd feels he needs to react to, if he cares. You see he's also kind of looking over his notes at this point from the Gitaxian Probe of, all right, what do I have to be concerned with in your hand?
And I'd be surprised if Todd didn't try to fight on this one. You know, if he doesn't fight, that means he'll just let Tasigur happen and then play his own Vendilion Click, but that's tough.
It looks like Anderson's going to go for a Remand, and he will.
Remand's such a good card against Tasigur. Danny can't really recast it. It plays like a Tarmogoyf a lot of the time, but not all the time. Sometimes they actually cost 6.
Yeah, this is one of those times he wishes that it was a Tarmogoyf.
But a lot of counterspell action here. Danny can Dispel, Snapcaster, Dispel, as long as the stack doesn't get too big.
Yep. So he is remanding.
He's remanding to remand.
Yep.
I'm surprised by that play. Todd will just recast the remand.
Yep.
That's not... You remand your own... Oh, man, okay.
You remand your own thing, but remanding a Tasigur is kind of bleh.
I mean, so this is Danny's just cycling his remand off of Todd's remand. It shows not a very strong commitment to this counter war.
Todd's going to respond to that by sacrificing the Scalding Tarn and digging up a land.
I mean, from Todd, I want to remand my own remand first. No, I mean, if he has that and gets it to happen, that's huge.
Yeah. What do we have now? Counterflux.
There's not much answering that one.
No, there's not.
Counterflux on the Tasigur, by the way, not
Okay.
on the remand.
Noted. The ultimate way to say no.
This card's a jerk. Just works.
Take a look at Todd's deck here. Yeah, the one counterflux in his sideboard.
This is where Danny would, if he had, would remand his own remand as well.
Mm-hmm.
So his remand resolves. He draws.
But that means Todd's left over with the remand now. To
Todd
use at a
still
later
has the
stage in
remand
game.
back. Yep. It's interesting, in these matchups, the remands stop being counter spells and they more be their protection for your own spells from counter spells. It's really interesting. You use them to save your own spells on the stack much more often than use it to counter your opponent's things.
It's this weird kind of stack manipulation that you can really take advantage of in matchups like this. And remand, it seems like a lot of the time is used like that. And now we've got a Huntmaster of the Fells. that
Love
Todd's
how
trying to
Todd
resolve.
has played this.
Me too. And now this is this thing now where, first of all, Todd knows about the mana leak that's over in Jessup's hand, so he doesn't have to worry about that. He's got the 3 mana available, and this is the kind of card that forces Danny's hand to do something.
Well, and this really was a game of, if Danny was going to try to go for Tasigur on his turn, he needed to either win that fight or he needed to not fight it at all.
Yep.
But he chose the in-between, and Todd is punishing him for it.
A small battle that he didn't win.
Right, no, if he was going to fight, he needed to win.
Yep.
Because there needed to be this Tasigur in play so that when Todd played a Huntmaster, so then either the board would be, Todd would either spend his turn getting rid of Tasigur and then we'd be 0-0, or it could be Huntmaster versus Tasigur, which is also a fine board, but Huntmaster versus nothing is not a fine board for Danny.
Terminate's going to be cast. Todd's going to use a Dispel on Terminate.
Right.
And so now we're playing this kind of weird game of, I want to protect my Huntmaster, but how much do I want to protect my Huntmaster? Because actually having a 2/2 out there is still perfectly fine.
Yeah, the Wolf token is good, and Todd gets the Wolf token regardless. There's also this pressure that Danny needs to play something on his own turn, because that's how the text on Huntmaster is that if Danny doesn't do that, it's real bad.
Yep. I know we haven't seen it for a little while, given that it rotated out of Standard, and you're not going to find that card in Legacy, but in Modern, you'll see it a little bit, and it's certainly having an impact on this particular game.
This is a spot, though, where Kologan's commander just shines. Get back Tasigur, kill Huntmaster. If Danny can get that to happen, which I believe he can, is a real good play.
He's reaching for the mana right now. There's 3 of it. I imagine that's the direction that he's going. Target this, get back that. That, of course, being Tasigur.
This card is, man.
It's really, really good.
I'm glad I play non-interactive decks so that I can just ignore that thing, because it's good.
It's a really, really, really good card. Wolf token left behind. Tarmogoyf the draw. In comes the Wolf token. Jessup going to go down to 16.
In these kind of matchups, you just look at Carl and say, man, you know, Todd had really positioned hard for that Huntmaster, and Danny undid it with one spell.
Yep. Let's see what the follow-up's going to be. It might be Vendilion Click time. Looks like it is.
So what I like about Danny is he did not then try to go for Tass. He could have tapped out to Tasigur that last turn, but I like him not doing that.
Vendilion Click, as we mentioned, it's the kind of card that kind of forces the hand of the opponent to do something. Danny has this Rending Volley in his hand that you would imagine he would prefer to use that on something else, like a Deceiver XR or potentially a Pestermite. But he might have to use it on Vendilion Click now. Instead, he's going to let Vendilion Click's trigger resolve. So Todd's going to lay out a hand of Rending Volley, Dispel, Vendilion Click, Tasigur, Mana Leak, Snapcaster Mage. That's a heck of a hand.
Those cards will all be worth something. The first thing is that Todd was probably assuming he had to take Tasigur, which he may still have to do, but he cannot be happy about these other cards.
See, what's so interesting is trying to get into the head of your opponent here on both sides of the table. If you're Danny, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm just going to cast this Rending Volley, get this Vendilion Click, and then you can take a card. Or you can say, well, maybe I'll just leave this Rending Volley in my hand, and we'll see if Todd wants to take that. And then I have my Tasigur, I have a mystery draw coming. Todd is saying Snapcaster Mage is the most powerful card in your hand in a handful of many powerful cards.
Well, there's a Kolaghan's Command in the graveyard, so that much makes sense, I suppose. The ability to rebuy a creature, kill something, like Snapcasting a Kolaghan's Command. Now we're getting into 3-for-1 territory.
Yep. Here's Vendilion Click.
This is still Todd's end step.
Yes. That's going to get hit up with a Cryptic Command.
Yeah, so I think Todd is seeing enough action in Danny's hand that Todd is going to try to be more aggressive here. He's going to lose the resource war, but win the damage war. And if he can do that, hold on for long enough, he can get Danny, maybe not dead, because that's unlikely with these creatures, but he can get him to a low enough life total that Danny has to start making decisions that he'd rather not make.
Now, for what it's worth, Todd has put the shields completely down, so Danny has free reign to do whatever he'd like to do.
Yeah, Danny will probably clean up the board with some combination of Tasigur, Rending Volley.
He'll start with Vendilion Click. So this is basically saying, I want to get a good look at your hand, or he could target himself. But he's going to target Todd Anderson, which means we'll see a Tarmogoyf for a Remand, a Negate, and a Scalding Tarn. If I'm Danny, I'm feeling okay about what I see on the other side of the table.
I think you take Tarmogoyf or you take nothing. Because Danny can go for Tasigur here. Tasigur's a great blocker, and then if all Todd has is blue counter spells, Danny can just activate Tasigur and start gaining advantage. And that plus the Rending Volley would take in Danny's hand takes care of the Vendilion Click. The Tasigur he's going to play takes care of the Wolf, and then he can just sit.
And unlike the last game, there isn't this kind of looming cloud over the game what the Deceiver XR can play, and if you draw a Splinter Twin, I'm dead. We're not at that stage of the game. Rending Volley is going to take care of Vendilion Click. Now I think we're going to see Tasigur.
Yeah, he's not even worried about Tarmogoyf here. He did not take the Tarmogoyf off V-Click.
Whole graveyard may go away. And I actually kind of like going this route.
Leave the command.
Yeah, can he cast the Mana Leak? No. But Mana Leak also doesn't seem very good in this board now.
Mana Leak's only going to be good in counter wars. It's not going to counter individual cards. So yeah, he leaves it to Dispel, and he leaves Kolaghan's Command. Another nod to just how good that card is here.
Remand the draw for Anderson. He'll start by playing Tarmogoyf. We'll find out how big it is here momentarily. Scalding Tarn, the land that Anderson will play. Tarmogoyf is a 4/5.
Yeah, so Tarmogoyf's the last thing that Danny needs to answer. You see Todd's hand of Negate, Remand. Danny's hand of Mana Leak, Dispel. They both are ready for counter wars, but on the board, we give a slight edge, I think, to Danny Jessup.
Oh, yeah. With the Vendilion Click coming in the air and no answer for that yet from Todd, and then Tasigur playing the role of Roadblock so that Todd can't attack, and then if he can't attack and just has to pass the turn with counter magic in his hand, that means that Tasigur gets to use its ability and start going to work that way.
And Todd will want to try to find a way to get that Tarmogoyf up to a 5/6. That will change the contour of this. Now, when you think about the kind of cards that do that, there aren't that many here, especially, I mean, Danny doesn't have Blood Moons in anymore, so we can't really get enchantment in the graveyard. I don't think there are Splinter Twins in Todd's list. There may be some Spell Skites in either of their decks. That would be enough to, the artifact could push it up to a 5/6.
Yeah, you're not going to find like a lot of enchantments, planeswalkers, or artifacts.
Right. So it'll be hard for Todd to get Tarmogoyf past 4/5.
Yeah. Pestermite with the draw here for Anderson. Conveniently trades with Vendilion Click.
Yeah, Pestermite's actually really good here. It trades with Vendilion Click. It can tap Tasigur for a turn. Now, but what Todd knows is that Danny still has a lot of cards in his hand to get through.
It's time for a Tasigur activation.
Yep.
Terminate and Tasigur. Yep. Well, you can have a replacement Tasigur.
I mean, he can't give Danny Terminates.
No.
Those are the cards that will make him lose the game.
Here's an attack for 3 in the air. See if Todd wants to use the Pestermite here. It looks like he does. Pestermite in this situation could tap down Tasigur and then trade with the Vendilion Click.
Yeah, I think it actually just taps the Vendilion Click before combat. We'll check, though.
And we'll see if this does draw out a response right. Yeah, it's going to tap down Tasigur.
All right, so the click is attacking.
Yeah,
Yep.
looking to trade.
Yeah, and this is a more aggressive line from Todd. It shows he's going from a spot where... I mean, it actually, both these games, it has seemed like Todd is the aggro deck. The Tasigurs give Danny some great inevitability.
Well, you do have to pick a role at the end of the day. And if you're going to be the aggro deck or the control deck, you can certainly shift during the games, but for the most part, I agree with you. I think we've seen Todd be the aggressor over the course of these 2 games so far. And when you have Tarmogoyfs in your deck, you're probably pretty good at doing that. That was Todd's draw this turn. He's coming in right now. We'll see if Jessup has something he wants to try to do about it. Looks like he'll be taking the damage. There's another Goyf.
Danny just needs to convert these cards into real resources. Tasigur is giving him a lot of cards, but not that much. I mean, Tasigur never gives you good stuff. He just gives you stuff.
Yeah. And Tasigur's not really cooperating right now. Jace Architect of Thought was the find. Here's a Thought Scour. That's going to turn over Cryptic Command and a Polluted Delta, so Danny will draw a card. It's a copy of Spell Snare. Not timely.
I mean, if Danny was going to go on that line, perhaps he wanted to do that earlier so that he would have a shot at that.
Now, Snapcaster Mage was a timely draw.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Because that's basically, at this point, that's just a Terminate. An expensive one.
But it's still a Terminate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Danny, card number isn't the problem anymore. It's card quality. He's behind on life points. He just needs to stabilize.
It looks like he's going to lean towards Snapcaster Mage.
This is something that Todd will fight over.
This card's so powerful. If Todd can fight over it, or the card it's going to flash back, he will. There's Terminate's going to go after Tarmogoyf. I think we're going to have the fight that we expected. We're going to start with a Remand.
Remember, if Remand counters that Terminate, it will still be exiled.
Yep. Spell Snare will go there.
Now, I wonder if Todd goes for remanding his Remand and then remanding the Terminate again. Or whether he just goes for the easy Remand of Terminate.
Here's Negate.
Okay, easy one. Negate on the Dispel. On the Spell Snare.
On the Spell Snare. We're going to have a Dispel in a moment. And they're going to build themselves a stack really quick here. There we go. Making it easier for them and you guys at home. Let's put Dispel on top of that stack. Remember, this is all on Jessup's turn right now.
Todd still has a Remand, but there's another Dispel in Danny's hand. He has Todd covered.
Yep. All right, stack is clear-ish. All right, Remand your Terminate? No, Dispel it. Your Tarmogoyf is dead. All that for a Tarmogoyf.
I mean, this was great for Danny because he was up on cards, and what he did is he traded four of his cards for 4 of Todd's cards.
Yep.
And now Tasigur will go back to getting Danny more cards.
Now, is Tasigur going to come into the red zone here? That's the question.
I was surprised to see it, but yes, it looks like it's going to.
It's a little aggressive.
I mean, there is something for just sitting back and blocking, but... I mean, the Lynchos are pretty close.
They are. They are. Remand, I believe the draw there for Anderson. You have to imagine he's going to keep attacking. Will Snapcaster may start blocking?
Yes.
Trade with the Wolf.
Trade everything. Trade everything and activate Tasigur.
I know the game plan you're on.
This one I understand.
Yep.
Removal spells and card draw. That one, great.
Serum Visions. What's our draw? Mana Leak. A couple of cards are going to go to the bottom.
Yeah, Thought Scour and Sulfur Falls, I believe. Neither of them what he needs right now. Just looking for Terminates. Seems to be a recurring theme. Often looking for Terminates.
Yeah. See, the spot where Danny gets himself into trouble here, however, with getting aggressive as he has, is then cards like Deceiver, Exarch, and Pestilent become like
things again.
Yeah, they become time walks that deal damage, basically. Here's Jace.
Yeah, he had to just debate between Jace and 2 Mana Leaks there. Jace should get remanded.
Yeah, that remands a beating.
Yeah, I think a little too much aggression from Danny.
Yep. Yeah, now Tasker has to hang back.
He has 2 Mana Leaks and a Jace left in hand. Nothing really helpful. I mean, leaving back Tasker activations is no good because Tasker is just going to get you a bunch of junk. He could, if he was going to swing Tasker, I would have wanted to see him play another Tasker post-combat.
That's what I was going to ask if you wanted to see him kind of cash one in and using it as, for lack of a better term, like a fire blast, just dealing 4 points of damage. Todd's draw was an Ancient Grudge, so now he has to slow down. Jessup gets to draw a card. It's a copy of Thought Scour. So maybe we'll see a Thought Scour to start things off. It looks like we will. So 2 cards going to go to the graveyard. Darkslick Shores and Polluted Delta. Mystery card coming. Another copy of Thought Scour. Let's do it again. 1 is a Thought Scour. 2 is a land. Mystery card is a Scalding Tarn.
All right. So he got to a land. Is he going to go for a Jace again this turn?
It looks like he's just going to pass the turn back.
All right.
And I'm fine with that because what that means is he gets to activate Tasker. Now, for the time being, we're going to see a Serum Visions for Anderson. Didn't get a great look at what he drew, but we'll get to see the scry of Lightning Bolt and X, and his draw was a Lightning Bolt.
And he has Bolt on top. Oh, my.
This is part of why getting aggressive there was a little risky. It was risky for Jessup.
I mean, yep, it was not what he wanted.
The other card's Keranos. I think Todd will be keeping those.
There's a lot of Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, it is.
The God of Storms and 2 Bolts, sure. This is going to be activation. This is, at best, it'll get Danny a Thought Scour.
Todd says,
he's going to bolt Danny with that on the stack.
I'm going to bolt you now in response to that Tasker activation. And now I'm going to Snapcaster Lightning Bolt. Conveniently, I have enough mana to play around your Mana Leak, which means you are dead. Todd Anderson is going to win this match here over Danny Jessup. 2-0. Teamer 20 going to take care of Grixis Control. Talking to Todd before this tournament, he's naturally a pretty confident Magic player. I think we all know that at this point. However, he really felt confident coming into this tournament, not so much in the standard portion, where he's happy enough with his deck choice, but he said in Modern, I don't expect to lose.